All right, I'll call this meeting of the Facilities Committee to order on June 22nd at 6:30 in room 54. First is the call of roll. Here's everyone's present except Don Keeter. All right, the minutes went out. Are there any, can we have a motion to approve the minutes? Any discussion on them or corrections or anything? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes. Public comment. We have any public comment?
Yes, we have Tom Myers. Tom brought to us, was it a year ago or so? Brought to the Facilities Committee about a park upgrades at Lambs Creek or a park out in Tainer Lake area. So he reached out to me again and I invited him in for public comment to let us know his thoughts on what is needed and kind of refresh the topic with the committee meeting. So Tom, you can either go up to the podium or grab turn one of these microphones on. I guess just first state your name and your address.
Tom Myers, North 8050 575th Street, Menominee, Wisconsin. So last year I came to Scott. I had an idea, being a resident of the Tainter Township, and I first of all met with Tainter Town Hall and tried to pick their brain and kind of see to get things rolling. There were some open lots up on development up there, and they kind of shut that down. And I brainstormed the idea a little bit more. And my kids always want to go over. They call it the Swing Park across from Jake's Supper Club, which is Lambs Creek, and they call it Swing Park because that's all there is, swings for the entire upper Tainter area. And there's a lot of children in that area. We're losing our children to social media and video games these days. So again, I reached out to Scott, being that he's in the Parks Department, and figured we could try to get something going to renovate the park. Like I said, I was in a Zoom meeting last year and just kind of let it go to see how things would transpire. Nothing came about of it. So then I started going through my emails again and seeing that the contact email I have with Scott. So I reached out again and he said it wasn't necessarily dead in the water, but nobody had picked up on it. So he invited me back to get it back on the agenda or whatever it might be that we need to do. Figure out some funding and some things of that nature. Since then, I have talked to several people. One, my church, they donate money to things of this nature. Snowmobilers Club, local businesses in the area and stuff like that. So I'm willing to do the, financial legwork as far as going out there and get donations and things of that nature. I would like it if somebody in the Parks Department picked up on kind of getting the ball rolling as far as like maybe rolling out some grants or what it takes to actually start the construction phase and things of that nature. I have a construction background, so I would have no problem being there, helping out however it might be. But I just think it's very necessary for the kids up in that area to have something to do other than a handful of swings to swing on. So I'd appreciate anything we can do to push it through. I don't foresee it probably happening this year, I wouldn't imagine, but you never know. But I'd like to see it maybe happen next year, get some money set aside for it.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for him. May I?
I guess it's not open to be.
Without objection, you can.
Okay, if there's no objections, go ahead.
So I'm down, kind of familiar with the park. It's right across the river from Jake's. Who owns that property?
I believe it's a Dunn County
It's Dunn County
public
property.
park.
It's Dunn County property then. Okay, not necessarily DNR state, just Dunn County. Dunn County property. Okay. Well, I'm in favor of it. And if you're interested in financial support, I'm a member of the Downsville Sportsman's Club. We would be interested in helping
with some funding or whatever that you've got something in mind. I'm not quite sure. You know, what are you looking at? Some kind of a pavilion or is there something?
No,
like-
there's actually two very nice pavilions there with
Okay.
picnic tables and everything that we're actually looking for a playground area, renovating it, getting it upgraded to one of these modern playgrounds that actually have, you know, something other than slides and swings, you know, it's got the ropes and monkey bars and all that good stuff.
Okay.
So if, you know,
All right, well, not a problem, but.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And your
Give
name
us a
was,
holler on that one.
what was your name again?
Tim Lee now, with the Downsville Sportsman's Club.
Perfect. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, yep. Unless there's objections.
You should make a parking lot out of it, because you got so many cars and boats that are parked on the side of that road. It kind of looks like it's get jammed up during the summertime.
Yeah, we don't want the kids to be playing in the parking lot. But I do agree with that. It's a busy landing. There's no doubt about it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
You bet. Thank you.
I did receive a phone call with from a gentleman that had some public comment on the parks. So I guess I'll read it at this time.
Okay.
I got a call from Don Johnson, E9262 1080th Avenue, Colfax. Don called me this morning on June 22nd. He talked to me regarding his opinion on camping at 22 Mile Park. I wrote some notes while I was listening and said that I would report to the committee. I also encouraged Don to speak at the meeting tonight to prevent any misunderstanding in the translation, but he did not show up, so I'll briefly recap what he told me. He believes the county if the county decides to allow camping, there's only room for a couple sites. Currently, they camp along the water, and this blocks the access for others to fish or dock their boats on shore. He doesn't feel comfortable standing next to their campsite and fishing. He says they have fire pits all over the park. The center area is blocked off really nice, and it creates a very good picnic area. He believes it's a very nice park for picnics and fishing. And though he's not against camping, he believes it's a little small for camping. There is a small area for a couple campers in the far corner, but that's about it. Don feels if camping is allowed, it should require a permit and be monitored where they camp. That's what he had to say. Any other public comments? All right. There's no items placed at the request of the chair, so we'll go on to F, the staff and recreation reports. Fair board. Deb.
Good evening. Just to bring you up to date, what's been happening, of course, the fair is coming up here quickly, a little over 4 weeks. Unbelievable. I don't know where summer went, or spring went, but the big ass fans, the materials for that has shipped. We did get a shipping confirmation. I just went back on to check to see where they are. They're in transit. And just for Scott's information too, they're expected to be here on the 24th of this month. We have put in for installation. I had written down date the week of next week and then the week of July 4th and the following week with the anticipation that they would be installed prior to setup. And that was cleared with Menominee Youth Hockey. They have no events in there, so that if it comes early, we can have access to the building before we officially take over for the fair. Our entries are open via fair entry. If any of you who are interested in doing open class, I encourage you to do so. Those entries are also open, and you can find a link on our website. And our new Carnival Spectrum is selling our online ride passes, the ones that you buy in advance. It's quite a savings if you do buy those ahead of time. And they are handling all the online sales this year, so that should help with some of the traffic and people waiting in long lines at the window to buy those early ride passes. We won't be selling any of them in the fair office. We are, they've had really good success with other fairs selling them completely online, and it just takes us out of the picture and we just get our check, which is kind of nice and without the manpower. Concrete project for the coverall building. We're working to get some donations to pour some additional concrete so we can get further in the building than what the money that we got for the Compeer grant will cover. And we have a contract or a concrete construction company that is willing to do the pour, provided that we would do the framing and so forth. So we'll have some volunteers that'll frame that up for us, and that'll save money on labor. So it'd just be the pouring. So they're hoping to get it done before the fair, but it all depends on what the weather does and availability of when they can fit that in the schedule. If it's too close, then we'll wait till after the fair to get it done, but it will be done this year, so we don't lose the money. Because it has to be turned back in by December 31st if we don't use it. So, and I guess, other than that, we're very busy right now. So, Scott has, I think, well, he said he was working on the Dropbox, so we haven't announced that yet, but hopefully we'll find out tomorrow. We have a fair board meeting tomorrow night, so we'll see if the box is up. So I don't know if you had something to add, Scott, or?
No.
Okay.
Any questions for Deb? All right, thank you. Moving on to facilities and parks. Scott?
Good evening, everybody. Operations, things are going pretty good. I hired my second seasonal worker to mow the parks. They're getting the parks done in, I think, 3 days now. It's a husband and wife team. They're doing very good. They go and do the job and get it done, and doing a very good job of mowing the grass, weed trimming, picking up the parks of any garbage, stocking the toilet papers, making sure the restrooms are cleaned. Doing a great job. So that's working out very well. I've got 2 facility workers that I have hired. One is starting July 5th. The other one, we have to determine a start date yet. So once we get those on board, we'll be back to fully staffed in the facilities department. Otherwise, the rest of the staff have been busy with work orders and mowing, keeping up with it. Although now I think the grass is kind of slowing down with lack of rain. It's drying up. So we'll see how long that lasts. As far as projects, the old laundry roof replacement, we sent out for bids. We got one bid back. We accepted that bid, so we're going to get the roof replaced on that building so we can continue to use that for our cold storage. What's that? That's the old outside laundry building. That's out back next to the boiler room. I think that roof was replaced. I want to say it was my first year here with Dunn County Healthcare Center, so I think it was replaced in 2000. So it's due.
That's only a couple of years ago, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just a few years ago. So what they'll do is strip the shingles off of it, and then they'll put a synthetic layer down, and then they'll put steel on top of it. So it'll be a nice roof, and it'll last us a long time. Let's see, facilities fleet. Well, I should go back to projects. I was working with the highway department on the judicial center parking lot. Originally, the highway department was going to do the seal coat on that, and started talking with them. The seal coating that they do is dumping oil down and then pea gravel over top of it. What would happen in the process of doing that is people would track a lot of oily rocks into the building. So we're opting to go with a different approach to it, have a different company do the seal coating. Highway department will do the crack sealing, and then an outside contractor will come in and do the seal coating and the striping. So we're getting bids on that, putting that out to bid so we can get that project going forward. Facilities fleet is working good. We implemented an electronic method of tracking mileage for our staff that use the county fleet cars. Mercedes was spending quite a lot of time at the beginning of each month reading the logs that people use in the vehicles. And no matter how much you tell them to write legibly, they don't. And she's trying to read the writing. So we worked with IT and we got an online form and now they put up a QR code is linked to it so that people can do it on their phone when they get in the car before they leave. They can put in their beginning mileage. They can do it when they get back and put in their ending mileage. That's all electronic. It gets emailed to Mercedes and myself. And then we see their mileage, the condition of the vehicles, a report, whether, you know, they put on there if something's wrong with the vehicle. Everything's done electronically now. So we're phasing out more of the paper situation, updated a lot better. So I'm glad we worked that out. It's going to work really good. So I wanted to ask you guys about the financials that I sent out, or I handed out last week. Is what are your thoughts on that type of report to you guys? I didn't print one out this month, but I wanted to find out your feedback on the ones that I handed out to you last month. If you wanted more detail on those, or if that was enough detail, or what are you guys' thoughts?
I just gave, to be honest with you, I just gave a quick read
Mhm.
and really never thought, okay, you know, being new to the committee, I really even, you know, compared to what.
Sure. Sure.
But it seemed to give me the information that I thought I might. need.
Sure. Sure. So I think Mike and Ron can probably tell you, and Don, if he was here, the financial reports that were given previously were probably less information.
I was extremely impressed. Thank you.
Okay, well, good. Well, then I
I
will,
always like more information.
sure.
To the point where it almost becomes overload, but it wasn't. It was very appropriate. So
Okay.
I was very happy with it. Thank you.
Okay. I think you and I had talked at another meeting about getting more detail like that. So that's what I'll do from here on out. Every month I'll go into SAP, I'll print that off and I'll have copies for you. What I'll do is I'll probably just include it with the packet. That way before the meeting, you can look it over. And if you have any questions, you can ask me during the meeting and we'll figure it out from there. I think that'll work out good. I talked with Dave from Eagle Point Solar finally. And so they're in the situation now that they're asking about if we figured out any type of funding for solar. They've been working on this project for probably 3 years now at least. And, you know, they haven't seen any money out of it. So them willing to run up here and do something is probably less of a priority since they're not making any money. So they're asking about the funding for solar, if we figured anything out. I explained to him about how we had talked about geothermal for Judicial Center and that it made sense to focus probably more on a geothermal system to save the natural gas, but that's going to increase your electric costs and usage. And then after that, you would look at solar to reduce your electric costs, kind of the steps we were looking at. So I don't know. I'd have to talk to probably Don more about the funding, his take on it. He knows more about that stuff than I do. So I just wanted to let you guys know that I was in contact with Dave from Eagle Point Solar, and that's what I got out of him. And Abrina was to start working on her project, which she did, and she sent out an email about giving updates. She said her first update was to be June 6th. I didn't see anything, so I reached out to her and she sent back an update and explained a few things, how she's working on the project, and she's run into a few challenges with some family issues, and then shattered her screen on her laptop. So she's having some misfortunes. But we're looking at, I think it was July July 6th, we're looking at a date to meet up and do a walk through the buildings. So then she can answer, or she can ask any questions she has. I can answer those. She can see the internal workings of the buildings we have. That'll help her out on her project. And I think that is about it, what I have for my report. Any questions?
Concerning the solar, so do we have enough roof? Or are we gonna put on the land to actually cover all the electricity? We know, have we like talked about how big an array would have to be? in
Sure,
order to-
sure. There has been discussion here when Eagle Point was here about how big the field would have to be. It wouldn't go on a roof, it would be a field. Eagle Point did a couple of situations. They looked at the outlying highway shops, and some of those panels would go on roofs out at those buildings. They looked at that. They were looking at the neighbors where there would be a solar field that would be just to the north of the neighbors. Where there's rows of pine trees and it'd be right out there in that field. Originally, when they looked at this building, they looked at out back between there's detention ponds and the facilities and parks office right in that area would be a field of panels. Nothing carved in stone. They wanted to get the interval data report to find out how the data was, or how the readings were, how much electricity use there was. And doing the interval data is it gives you it in 15-minute increments. They can really narrow it down. Then they would be able to figure out what size field we would need for each of the buildings.
Okay, thanks.
One of the issues we have with that company is they come in, and put it in, and then they sell us the electricity back. And it's at a price cheaper than what we will buy it from the power company. But that's the way and then they get the rebates, which as a county, we don't qualify for the rebates, I believe. So there are some advantages. However, the state doesn't allow it through some legal whatever negotiating back and forth. The state don't allow it, and the courts have not allowed that to be overturned. So, and I'm certainly not the expert on that. I'm just kind of following up on what we've discussed the last couple of years here. Don's very involved, been involved for like 4 years with this individual. So he has, that's kind of been his little baby there to nurture along, and he's done a lot of work on it. We can only put so many panels in because XL won't buy back after a certain amount at the cheaper price. So if we put in too much, then we don't get, the usage has to be calculated to know how many panels we can put in and still be able to sell it back at the premium or the favorable price, and then use it the rest of the time. With the airport there's a lot of limitations on building anyway, so it does create a favorable place for solar panels. My question is, has there ever been any discussion of actual county funding, or was this always going to be funded through Eagle Point and the county was merely buying it from Eagle Point? So I'm a little surprised that they're asking about funding.
The situation was that there was nothing as far as looking at using county dollars to get this started up and going. It was working through Eagle Point and then how it would go from there. I know Don was talking about looking at some other options of funding, but it wasn't just the county borrowing for it or anything like that. And as far as the size of field that you could put out there, you could put in, I believe it was up to a 100 kW system is what they talked about. The only way you can go any bigger than that, then you'd have to put in a system with batteries so that you'd charge those batteries to take that electricity to use it another time, which is another higher expense. So there wasn't a discussion of putting the batteries in. It was a discussion of going to that 100 kW system. Unless we could get that interval data and prove that, show that we could go more than that.
And we haven't been able to get that data from Excel. They're
Yeah.
kind of bucking the system.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes.
From my perspective, on being on the Board of Adjustment, we just approved a 10-acre solar farm for Dunn Energy. And just to kind of bring it into perspective, that 10 acres will create enough power to generate power for 440 homes. So the kind of, depending on how large you are going to be looking at, that'll kind of give you the scope of the power that it's out there. But there's also the same situation with Dunn Energy being a nonprofit. They had to basically have this other organization build this, and then the power that is generated kind of goes through them, that is then gone through so you can get the rebate, the governmental rebates. Have to have a for-profit entity to go in that direction. But in those rebates are almost a 30%. So it's well worth going that route. Anyway, that's all.
Sure.
Any other questions for Scott? All right, the next item would be the corporate council staff or corporate council report. I guess they're not here.
None.
So we'll move on to considerations for action to be taken by the committee. A would be camping in the parks. And I'm assuming we don't have a report.
I discussed that with Nick yesterday, I believe it was, and he was working on some other stuff and wasn't gonna have it ready for this meeting.
Honestly, I didn't think we would see it this meeting.
So we'll have to table that one till the next meeting.
Next item is a request by Red Cedar for fireworks by Red Cedar Racing at the July 1st race for the 4th of July celebration.
Yeah, so Red Cedar Racing contacted me. They want to do for their race on July 1st for the 4th of July weekend. They want to have a fireworks display. They are not doing it themselves. It would be a company that would be doing it. So it's T&K Fireworks. I have a copy of their certificate of insurance that they sent. He's been doing fireworks for quite a while, well-known company for that. They just want to get the okay from the facilities committee to do it. They got the okay through the city of Menominee, through the fire department, all that, but they it's suggested that they get the approval from the facilities committee before doing this.
So before discussion, we need a motion, correct? So do we have a motion?
So moved.
A second? Okay, and now discussion on the motion.
Will the public, be aware that this is going to happen in town?
I believe so. They've been advertising it already.
Okay. I mean, that might be a bit of a surprise for some folks, but who knows?
Yeah.
And you say that T&K is insured and
Yep.
they have the certificate of insurance.
Yep, Racing sent this over to me, so got their certificate of insurance, T&K Fireworks. So
Is there any other legal issues that we need to be concerned about? I'm assuming not.
none that I'm aware of. I did discuss it with Nick a little bit and he was agreeable to putting it on, or suggested putting it on the facilities committee and bringing it here. He didn't bring up any other legal issues that he was concerned of.
That would have been my concern. Yep.
Is this a multi-year contract, a one-year contract? Kind of what?
I think I believe it's a one-time thing because of being on the 4th. So
Okay. All right, so we're not making a commitment for long term in case we get a lot of pushback.
Yeah.
Okay,
I just wanted to make a comment that we had them at the fair, not that company, but we had Spielberg. We probably had them for 4 years in a row. We had them on a Wednesday night
okay.
and it was pretty well received in front of the
Okay.
grandstand, so. We just didn't, because we quit having a grandstand show on Wednesday night. It was kind of like our kickoff of the fair, so, yeah.
All right.
And the horses weren't there, and that was the biggest thing, was the 4-H horse kids didn't want their horses there, so.
Mhm, yeah. I was
But,
told.
it was pretty well received and we didn't get any complaints. You know, it's been a
Alright.
few years, but. So if that helps.
Any other discussion? Go ahead.
Thanks.
Supervisor.
I was wondering, what time and where are they lighting them off? I'm just curious for my own purposes, because I'm interested to see them.
I believe they'd be lighting them off from the infield of the track. As far as the time, they did not say a time as to when they would do it. I suppose it would be after it gets dark, you know, somewhere. Possibly be 10 o'clock.
Okay, thanks.
All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, next item, information or future of the transfer station. Do we have any updates or any more information?
I guess I don't have a lot of information. I recall, you know, back when this was, we were closing down the transfer station. That was probably before GFL came into town here. And we have Claire and Mark here from GFL again also for this. But I guess at that time it was Menominee Disposal and a couple other places that were interested in buying. There was also UW Stout that was interested in doing something as far as a recycling center, looking at possibly leasing. I think that information was you know, well received. It was when Morgan was looking at the transfer station, whether to, you know, a selling or a leasing situation. He kind of went back and forth about it. At one time he'd say it was, you know, it'd be best to sell it. And then it was, no, we shouldn't sell it. We should lease it. And it was, well, we really don't want to lease it because we'd have to fix up the whole thing, you know, everything to get it up to code to lease it out. So it was kind of a back and forth thing. And then it was decided to keep it for a year and see what happens. I don't have any other information really than that. I think at this point, I think if the county board decided to do a sale or a lease, I think it would be different players involved because now the GFL has purchased Menominee Disposal. And I'm not sure I think at that time Paul's Industrial Garage was involved, and are they still in business operating, or are they? Okay. Okay, so GFL purchased them also. That's what I thought I had heard also. So some of the players have changed as far as that. So I think it'd be if the facilities committee decided that, hey, we want to do something here as far as a possible sale or lease, it would be put it out there and see what comes about of it.
How do we go about something like that? I mean, do we move this forward to another, do we gather information here and then move it forward to the county board or executive, or?
I think in this case, it'd be something you'd probably want to bring to exec, because I know it's gonna be a bigger political lift, particularly for a sale than a lease. It's been kind of a fraud issue. And I also know there's some concerns about possible need for toxics remediation, which we wouldn't have to do if we leased. But if we were to sell to a non-governmental entity, we would have to do, and so that might sort of neutralize the cost benefit. It was a big topic at Exec like about a year ago, so I thought that I should come along just for that particular chunk of context today.
That's good. You have some knowledge that some of the rest of us probably don't have.
And I guess I like the idea of leasing it because the county can hold on to their some assets and still utilize it with some control over the purpose. If we sell it, there's nothing that guarantees that it stays as a transfer station. If we lease it out, then at least we know it will provide that service to the public, which I think would be a nice service to bring back to the county, to the residents of the county. So I certainly am in favor of trying to continue to push this issue along, and I'm a little biased, and I'll say that I definitely prefer to push it along with the lease concept and the sale, especially hearing what Chairman had to say.
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Yes, sir.
I was on the solid waste committee prior to its dissolution. And so I'm assuming that the facilities committee is probably the next spot where a lot of this should be hitting at this point. I know there was really two contentious points that were part of the decisions about to sell or lease. But there's also an additional 10 acres of property that goes with this. And so really anything that we do, if we sell or lease that property, we're really going to have to define what's disposition of that 10 acres in addition to it at this point. But, the facility is way past its best days. So, if we lease it, we're probably going to have to throw some money in it to get it up or, up to a level that it needs to be, to my knowledge. But I wouldn't have a problem moving it forward through this committee. At least that idea to entertain it.
Now, I have seen many commercial leases where my wife has commercial leases for her salons in the cities and stuff. And if you do a commercial lease, typically you can include the costs of that in the lease. So if the parking lot needs to be fixed, they fix it. If the building needs repairs, you may have to give them a little more favorable lease number, but then they will maintain it and for the number of years, and you likely get something back at the end of that that's better than what you started with in this situation. I'm sure they're not going to give us top dollar if they have to do a lot of repairs, but I think we still can try to not put our own money into it and still negotiate a favorable situation for the county. But that's, far more about it than I do being on that committee, so I appreciate your information. So I guess I'm still not sure what steps we take to move forward at this point or what. Go ahead, Ron. Sorry.
Well, I'm kind of in favor of leasing it, gotta do something with it. Cause it's just sitting idle, right? There's nothing going on. And what's this 10 acres look like? Is that wooded or is that field or?
To my knowledge, it's field that is currently being rented for a campground that don't go.
Oh, okay.
I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure it's the fields across the entranceway, right?
Yeah, it's to the east of the road that goes into the transfer station.
Well,
Directly to the
then
east
you
of
got some use going on that property then.
So that is leased out. Jeff and Mary Merritt lease that and farm it.
Yeah, it was originally purchased in about 2012, 2014, somewhere in there for potential expansion of the transfer station.
Well, yeah, and Well, I live out, I don't live in Menominee. We got our township takes care of our garbage deal and we never were in the county for a long time, but I know a lot of people that live in this town would like to see something like that happen. And I wouldn't know because did they have another company take over for trash then? In this town, when they closed that up?
Every township had to take care of their
Oh,
own
okay,
township.
all right. And municipalities and everything. Okay, all right, well, yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing it being leased.
As you've seen in some of the letters from some of the town chairmen, the townships don't necessarily take care of some of the to get rid of some of the recyclables or the refrigerators or some of those, if I'm correct.
Yeah, I think it was, there were like 26 classes of items that we used to take care of, and now it's down to like 14 to 15 for most of the townships and municipalities. I don't have the exact numbers, but that's about where the bells ring in my head. Just as a point, you could choose to explore that at this committee and then forward that to the exec. We can put it on the exec agenda for discussion, then assuming that exec is comfortable with that, send it back here for all the detail work.
So move it forward now or do more work?
If people are comfortable moving it forward, just bring it up at exec and we can have that discussion. Because like I said, it's a little more politically fraught than I would want to do just straight from the standing committee. So if you just like move it forward to exec for further discussion, and then we could send it back down here, assuming that exec is comfortable with that.
If I may, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to also, if we are going to move it to exec, because of the fact that many people in the county are familiar with the transfer station as a spot. And I think over the years, we've done a pretty good job of keeping that idea in the public's mind. And I think, if somebody new takes it over, I think, maybe it would be a good facility or a good spot to have one of those drop-off situations or medications or some toxic stuff that isn't being taken care of by the municipalities, that maybe this transfer station may be able to serve that purpose and possibly even as part of the lease situation, that maybe once a year or twice a year have that facility or that space used for countywide or multiple township wide collection spot of some sort. That something that we could work out. If that would be acceptable to whoever the leasee is.
Putting on my Menominee City Council hat for a moment. We've had really good luck in getting grant funding for some of those collections in Menominee for the greater region. So
Okay.
we could talk to the city of Menominee about how they're going about that. And
Okay.
that might be so it could be like a once or twice a year, a specific organization comes in, and because Menominee's been having really good luck with that the last 2 years.
Okay, I just thought it would be, since the public is aware of that site and, don't lose that connection, so to speak.
Thanks. So I'm not clear on like, how does the process work? Like, is there a request for proposal, that, how do people know that we're accepting lease proposals or like, how does that work? I don't know. In the county, does anyone?
So I think the process that we would follow here would be move it to exec. Exec would have it as a discussion item and discuss the sort of the legal process with corp counsel. I'm not sure whether it would be a general open bids or what the exact process would be, because it'll depend on a bunch of things that are either beyond my knowledge or beyond my control. So but then assuming that this committee moves it to exec would have that discussion. If exec is comfortable with it, they would send it back to this committee with whatever the legal advice and to sort things out with Nick. The lease, if we get one, would be arranged. That would go, I think that would have to be voted on by exec and then voted on by county board. It's convoluted and it's slow.
Okay, thanks.
So from the committee, go ahead, you had a question. I'm sorry.
You know, my only thought is that once exec plays whatever game it's gonna play with it. I think once the word gets out, there's gonna be a lot of people that want, you know, that the facility is up for grabs, so to speak. I think a lot of people are gonna create some interest there too, you know.
Do we want to do any more work with it here in this committee before we move it to exec, or do we want to move it to exec at this time? And do we want to make a motion to move it forward as a option to lease? Maybe keep it more that route, or do we just want to move it on and let them tell us whatever they have to tell us? I guess I would be looking for a motion from someone to.
I would personally, I would be interested in moving it to exec so that we get the legal. And then after that, I would like the facilities, you know, to have some say in it. You know, we don't want to just cast it to the wind at that point. So if you're looking for a motion, I'd be happy to entertain a motion to pass this issue to the executive board.
And we, as a general or as a little more specific, or?
I'm not good at the specific. I'm good at the general.
Okay. Is there any more discussion?
I think maybe to flesh out the motion is let's move it to exec for, and then for legal opinion through corporate counsel, and any suggestions that they would like to offer and put on the table to bring back to the facilities. And at that point, you know, we could at least put our 2 cents in. I don't know if that works in a
Well,
motion.
Yeah, I think that I can, as chair of the exec committee, be pretty firm that it will come back to this committee for.
Okay,
You're the people who should be making the arrangements, sorting it out, making those decisions. It's just, this is one that I feel probably should go up to exec before it comes back here.
okay. So is that a workable motion, or do we need to refine that?
I think, if I might, just a motion to move consideration of the future of the transfer station to exec for exec's opinion and legal opinion on possible lease or sale with the expectation that will be returned to facilities for negotiation.
That was the motion I really wanted to say, but I just didn't.
I thought that's kind of what you said.
It's recorded, so.
Sure.
Do you want to restate your second for that motion? Any other discussion? All in favor of moving it to exec, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Moves on, passes, moves on the exec. Considerations or reports. Okay, an ordinance to be recommended to the Dunn County Board by Facilities Committee resolution for budget adjustments, ARPA funds in the amount of 40,000 for installation of fans in the cattle barn at the rec park. So I believe didn't we act on that last week or last month?
We went ahead on it, but we have to have a resolution for the actual budget adjustment to move the funds from ARPA into the parks budget. So that it covers so then the money can be paid out to pay for the fans and the installation.
So can we make a motion or do we need a written resolution that we vote on?
You can just make a motion for a budget adjustment to be drafted by corp counsel for.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Do we need to say it's for because it was the purchase and installation of the fans, right? I don't know if that is gonna be a sticking point for anyone, but
So just, I think what we have to do before we can have the discussion, we have to have a motion a second. Then we can discuss the actual
verbiage of the
verbiage of it.
resolution.
And if we want to change it, then you can make a motion to change the motion.
I was just gonna change it right away, so we don't do it twice.
Or Tim can rescind his motion and change it.
Or you can do a friendly amendment.
Okay, I second.
Okay. So the motion is for the installation, the purchase and installation of the fans in the cattle barn at the rec park.
And just as a comment, did that money get allocated to the Dunn County Fairs budget, not facilities and parks budget? I thought I saw that on the original minute.
Well, I guess, yeah, that from the original workshop, I guess it was
Yeah.
to the fair, so it would go to the
Fairs budget.
fair's budget, yeah.
Which I don't
That
think
would
you
be a
had that in your
question for
motion.
Nick.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, you didn't put that in the motion, but I just wanted, before the resolution was drafted, that
Just a resolution for a budget adjustment to.
So we're still good with
Yeah.
our motion in second.
to the
Yeah, I think you're
appropriate
good with
entity.
that, but yeah, just to sort that out, so.
All in favor? Or wait, is there any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, and then we will make sure Nick or the finance
Yeah.
gets
whoever.
that appropriately tagged. That looks like everything. Now, our next meeting date is set for July 27th. However, I believe that is
County
a
board.
conflict because the
Yes.
county board meeting is that day. Well,
I just found that out today that is county board, so yes.
so do we want to move it into the first week of August and then maybe just skip the August meeting? Well, we could do it on the week prior. There's an executive meeting that night, but that gets done earlier.
Yeah, it should be, I don't think it'll be particularly long, like 3:30 to 5, I would guess.
So we could do it the week ahead, which would be the 20th of July. Does that work for you guys? Work for you, Scott?
Sure, I can make that work.
Deb? You weren't coming on the 27th anyway, right? All right, well, we might just have to have it without you then, Deb. So the next meeting we will schedule for July 20th at 6:30. And with that, I would say we are then adjourned. Thank you for coming to that
You're welcome. I'm trying to keep it,
cycling issue.
I try to keep an eye on all of the agendas, and I do want to make it to every committee. It's just been, had a little bit on my plate.
Yes.